Hello, my name is Ryan Sesney. I'm the director of the gaming track for JordanCon this year, and I'm here with a very special guest. If you would be so kind to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I am Judy Black. I write D&D modules and like fantasy novels. My latest one is called Shadows and Sideshows, which is a collection of novellas about a traveling sideshow that hunts monsters in 1903 America.
Hmm.
So it's super fun. You can already see like hunting monsters and fighting monsters. This might be a theme running through my work.
You stick to what you like.
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
you were going to go with you stick with what you know, and I was just like, sure, yeah, I find monsters in my
I
story.
would never accuse you, ma'am. Especially somebody that just claimed to have a fascination with hunting. I would never.
Never.
Never. That is really exciting, though. I do have a love for more of the historical gaming, so I'll be interested to see how that shakes out.
Yeah, yeah, it's so much fun. My bookshelf over here is just filled with books. I've got all kinds of things on like old types firearms, travel, train schedules, all sorts of wild stuff from that project, which it's fun. I feel like then it makes me feel like my grad school time wasn't entirely a waste, like just mostly. But I'm sure that's how my professors intended me to use that research class. It's fine.
Sure. Well, nothing's wasted if you use it. Yeah. And I know that one of your more recent project was a supplement for magical games.
Yeah, so I run a interesting little D&D group right now set in Eberron that is made up entirely of casters. They have nothing but casters in the group, which presents its own challenges as a game. Locked doors and trying to be sneaky are bold strategies because nobody is dexterous or strong. Um, they're intelligent and they're charming occasionally. Um, but I wanted to have a festival, and all of the festival games I kept finding were all, whack the thing with the mallet or fire an arrow in a moving target. They were all things that were based for more physical classes, and I wanted my players to get to have the same opportunities. So I decided I'd just come up with a festival that was just focused on purely magic users. So there's a magic room where your entire goal is to destroy as many things as possible. So for those wizards who want to let loose with a fireball and not worry about, collateral damage, giving them that kind of opportunity to show off their own stuff without having to like break their arm trying to hit something with a mallet.
Eh, I get you. What is it? Reading it a bit, it kind of reminds me of some of the older supplements for the Kingdom of Galantry back in the Beckme days.
Okay, yeah, I've heard somebody. I'm trying to think of who else mentioned that, but when I was getting like read throughs of it outside of my group, someone else mentioned that too, and I've not read that or seen those before, so I'll have to actually look at those now.
That was the original like high magic setting. It's somewhat dated, so like there's some things in there that are
Hmm.
uh, go with the original Beckme system and such, but generally speaking, they had a lot of oddities like that. For instance, there was the flying city of Serene that
Oh,
basically had like magical biplanes, and
yikes!
you could go into a falling chamber where you just like basically indoor skydove. It was
Oh my, that
yeah.
sounds amazing. I'm definitely checking that out. All right, I got my note over here to look at that when we're done.
I think that if your players are keen on that, they would really like that sort of thing. And like I said, it is a little dated with an older system, but at the same time, it's great for ideas.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sometimes I get so caught up in, oh, it's not for the right system or the right edition, but you can still get some good ideas from stuff, even if it's a totally different system that's not at all even D20 based.
Oh, sure. You had mentioned that you were, what is it, currently doing an Eberron campaign, and I know that you had intended to do some supplements for that as well.
Yeah, so Everon it's one of my favorite campaign locations, I suppose you could call it, in the D&D universe. I just find the juxtaposition of magic and technology and the kind of pulp-ish style of it makes for a really fun game. There also is basically anything you could want, you can find in Eberron. Your players can wander the Mournlands and fight a bunch of monsters. They can go and check out the big cities. They can do an urban campaign. You can do a jungle campaign. I mean, there is almost no limit to what you want your players to experience in it, which I think is really fun. Because as a DM, it gives me a whole lot of flexibility for what I want to explore. I've sent my players to a dinosaur theme park, to a fancy spa, and into the Mournlands itself, which are, the really obscure, everything got blown up by strange magic and nothing works quite right place. And that is super fun. My players hate it. They've been multiple times now. So they're starting to get the hang of it, but they still hate it. And so that's super. It's a great location to give a little bit of everything to different people and to let your players kind of have a variety of adventures rather than the same type of dungeon over and over.
What is it? Variety can really spice up a game, so that would be pretty handy if somebody wanted to grab it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also really fun to see a wizard have to run away from intellect devourers that are just wandering loose, and also from living spells which wander the Mournland. So that's super fun when suddenly the wizard's fireball comes to life and comes after them. So that's always just adds a little bit of fun to it.
I mean, there are clearly posted signs: "Do not feed the intellect of
I
ours."
know. Yeah, that was great because our wild sorceress immediately set off a wild surge that cast grease on the party. So immediately half the party went down as the intellect devourer got on them. So it was a good time. It was a good time for everyone involved, I'm sure. Those wild surges are great.
Oh, I love the unexpected complication. Those are
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, my players are their own worst enemy. There's very little I have to add to things. They do it a lot to themselves sometimes.
Yes. I do want to take a little bit away from your personal game and focus a little bit more on your writing. Now, what is it? As you'd mentioned, you do write fiction, but I, given the nature of the track, I was going to focus on more of your gaming projects. And I know that you do write a couple things that support 5e products, and as we mentioned before, some of them are even in 5e settings. What do you think the advantage of writing within an IP is for?
Yeah, so it's interesting because the first fiction writing job I got was for an IP, and it seems like that's just what I keep gravitating towards weirdly, which I never expected. But what is great about the IP and working within that is that you already have a built-in market, you already have people who are interested in this. So there's a little less legwork you have to do. And as a writer, since you're already using so much of your brain to try and create things, having a little less to do to try and find the people who want the product is really helpful. If someone's going on dmsguild.com, let's say, they're looking for a D&D product. So you're not trying to grab someone who's just browsing Amazon or even drive-through, which is a little more varied in the types of products that it holds. So for that, it's very helpful to have that built-in market, to have that built-in group that's already looking for what you have. Nobody is signing on to DM's Guild most of the time to not look for a product of some sort. It's not a site that you kind of just go to peruse and check out things. I mean, at least I guess I don't. But that's what I really enjoy about it. It also helps because I already have a map that I can draw from that is provided for me. I don't have to come up with the map or the city names or all of those extra bits and pieces. And sometimes that's really nice, is to just have a kind of empty place that you can flesh out. Like for instance, the Mournlands, is it's mentioned quite a lot in Eberron, but there's not a ton of detail provided. There are specific locations within it that are given to you, but what you do with those locations is up to you. And so what you can do as an IP is I can take that idea, and somebody else writing an Eberron campaign will say, oh, cool, there's a city called Making. I wonder what's in that. And they may go to DM's Guild and look for that. So it works out in that way, in that you're kind of reaching the people who are already interested in what you're doing without having to look for them as hard.
And yeah, along that point too, I know that, for instance, the fifth edition especially loves the Sword Coast in Faerun. The majority of their adventures have basically been set there, but at the same time, that is set on Niran, one of 9 planets, all 9 of which are inhabitable. And they haven't done too much outside of Choltz, so they've really only stuck with one continent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a massive amount of space there if somebody wanted to take it up. And
Yeah, absolutely.
granted, granted, it's an older setting, and lots of other people have written on there, but even so, like, there is huge fertile grounds for that.
Oh yeah. No, I was just agreeing. There's so much more than just the Sword Coast for D&D, and it seems like that is most people's primary and main introduction. They don't seem to get to experience much outside of that, even with all of the different realms and the different planes that are presented. Not many adventures you get to do too much diving into that, aside from, I mean, like Avernus, you got to go into the pits of hell, so to speak, and go forth and battle that way, which is an interesting campaign. But there's just so much potential and so much there that's waiting to be filled in. I sometimes think D&D can feel a little bit like a fill in the blank kind of adventure book, where you just are building the pieces as you go. And that's, I guess, what I like about it, is that make it up as you go kind of attitude.
Oh yeah, that's definitely one of the more fun things about running.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but with basically so many people contributing to it, do you ever feel like that's a bit limiting as far as that goes? Because, say you have a really whiz bang idea about, the city of doors, and you have this excellent campaign idea, but it's a very established, like, there are very established rules with that setting, and there are very established things in there. You can't just have the Lady of Pain disappearing, and
Yeah, when I first started writing in IPs, I was told you can't blow up Cincinnati. It was a modern day superhero thing, and that was how they kind of said it: is you can't do world breaking things within this IP. It's not your sandbox. We're just letting you play in it, and that's something you kind of have to keep in mind when you're writing IPs, and it can be really challenging, because sometimes you want to blow up a city. Maybe I want to blow up Baldur's Gate, but I mean, the D&D people do it all the time. Um, but you have to kind of keep in mind what the rules and the lore and the expected guidelines of that are. I mean, like my poor Eberron book is just covered with post-it notes of reference points for me when I'm working on different projects, because I'm trying to keep the lore that's provided correct and make sure that I'm not accidentally breaking something that's an established part of the world, because that kind of defeats the purpose of writing an IP if you're going to just ignore it.
yeah, you definitely want to use what's already there, and that kind of leads me to my next question. When writing in such a well fleshed out IP like Eberron, how do you keep the lore straight? I mean, honestly, you may pick a city because you like the sound of Darfanel. That sounds like a cool place. It's next to a mountain. That's all I need. You go there and you're like, oh, geez, this is the resting place of the lich held in perpetual. I
Yeah,
really didn't want to go that dark.
yeah, and that definitely happens sometimes, where I'm just going along like, yeah, I'm just going to set it in this city. That sounds like a good name. And then later in the second draft, I actually go through and we'll research stuff. And I'm like, oh, oops, nope, 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 nope. Delete every mention of that city. That is, nope, nope, nope. That city is inhabited by ghosts, and this is not a ghost adventure. What am I doing? Um, so I mean, I don't know, old school feels silly to say, but I am very much a pen and paper kind of person when it comes to my notes. So I like to, like I showed my lovely book with its 8,000 little sticky tabs sticking out of it. Is that's kind of how I like to keep reference of the lore and the main things that I reference. And, I try to get familiar with certain areas and certain things and mainly focus on those. So I don't have as much work to do with, oh, wait, was that in this city or was that in this continent? Or, oh, God, oh, it was over here. So I try and kind of keep a focus, so it makes it a little less of a hassle. But I mean, the Eberron is huge anyway, so there's so much space, and there is honestly quite a lot. It's not talking about, do you include the novels in what you're doing, or do you just include what's in the actual playbooks? And that's something I go back and forth with. I primarily just stick with the playbooks because not every player or DM has experience with the novels themselves, so that lore may or may not be something they can actually even reference if they don't have those books.
Sure, especially when getting into the novels, it's it gets rather complicated as far as
Mm-hmm.
trying to maintain continuity there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of them, and they don't always agree with one another, and what's happening in the timelines and spaces, and what this thing does, and so yeah.
Well, and not necessarily to throw stones at anyone in particular, but quite frankly, the whole outfit was kind of started as like a fan-run organization, and they didn't necessarily know that this whole Forgotten Realms thing would be a thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of funny the things that just show up and no one actually planned on them becoming a thing, and then it was like, hey, wait, did we made something here. So that's always kind of fun for me to look back on and see people doing that.
Not to get too far off topic, but I forget who said it, but it was something in passing that when the what is it when somebody was writing for Dragon magazine that I talked to earlier, they had basically said that uh, they had a idea for like a gothic mystery, and they were writing for it, and then the editor at the time was looking at that, and it's like, well, we're going to put this in the Ravenloft book because all this like spooky stuff, we can't have it in here, and it's like, but the last what was it? Greyhawk book I read was, just like this, and they like looked at him. That's like, when was the last time you read a Greyhawk book?
No, yeah, it is. It's interesting how each of the kind of settings are supposed to have a specific vision, but the second you take it out and into the hands of DMs and players, like all of that goes out the window. As
Yeah,
any DM or player knows, like the best laid plans, they don't survive contact with the enemy, which every DM is the player saying, what is the wall made of? And you know that question can only lead to trouble for you. So you have to think of your answer very carefully.
oh, for me, I love that sort of player. It's always the one that's like, okay, there's a door. What do you want to do?
Oh God, doors.
Uh, does it
My
look like a
players hate
normal
chairs.
door? Is there like a knob? Is there?
What's the door made out of?
Well, I mean, yeah, for me, it's the player that like just wants to sit back. Like, I know there's something there. It's just I don't want to go and be the one to open it. Hey, you should open it, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, my hit points don't say I should not open this door. That's what my hit points say. My hit points say you should open this door.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, yeah, and I like dealing with a bunch of spellcasters is challenging because sometimes I forget counterspell is a thing, and my big bad is off to do something, and somebody says counterspell, and I'm just like, that is a thing you can do, isn't it?
Hmm.
Huh? Bold strategy.
Uh,
So, yeah.
trying to think the thing that when I had first started playing fifth, the one that was always the bugbear in the ointment is curses, because there's a spell that basically you can remove a curse, and it's fairly low level, all things considered. But I mean, that is a plot hook in so many like adventures, and it makes such a great one that like, and the its counterpart, the curse spell, is, I want to say, a fairly low level spell too, and it only lasts for like a minute. So,
Yeah, yeah. Some of the spells are like, wait, what? But if you run into a group like mine that has no cleric,
yeah.
they're kind of in trouble if they run into some kind of a bad curse. They can't just remove it very easily, which is really funny. Occasionally.
Well, that's always one thing that I feel like they use the word curse because it's very iconic, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that they meant to use it in the context of like, you know, a werewolf or
Yeah, I put a spell on you.
yeah, because otherwise every fifth level character could cure lycanthropy with,
Yeah, yeah. And then some of the spells really just their names don't match what they do. Like chill touch, it makes me mad every time.
oh yeah.
Why? It is neither ice nor touch. Why?
Yeah. No, that's it's funny you say that. Just about everybody I know has a complaint with the naming of that one. Usually
It's
not the
so
effect.
confusing. It's so confusing. Like when I play with new players, that spell messes them up because they just look at the name of it and they're like, "Oh, I'm in melee range. Let me just." And I'm like, "I'm very sorry, but that that spell doesn't actually mean you touch them coldly." So yeah, that spell is yeah. There are some spells and some wordings and some of the D&D things I would adjust slightly to make them a little more clear. But
And to a certain extent, it's branding at this point
Oh
because, like,
yeah.
you don't want to, like, create too much confusion. I remember, what is it? If you watch, like, Jeremy Crawford's,
Mhm.
he has like rule deep dives basically on Dragon Talk, and he'll go
Yeah.
into like some of it. And I just remember him saying that like one of the things that they wanted to clean up basically was a bunch of spells that like they went to press in Sword Coast Guide that had like a couple of typos in it, and it was like really inconsequential things, seemingly, but like when they were doing the deep dive, it's like, oh yeah, and the wording of this, like, oh, we really screwed up with that because it led to like this and this and this and this, and I'm just like
Mhm.
looking at that, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I would have never thought about that just reading it, but yeah, wow.
Yeah, it is so interesting how differently the rules can be interpreted just based on like a comma being in a different place or one word being different, and suddenly that spell is totally different or
Yep.
could potentially be used in a way that wasn't the intention.
Yes. In this case, it was just the denotation of range.
Ah, another important spell component.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like I can shoot you from 700 feet away. Ha ha! Okay, please no.
Well, what is it? If you can see it, you can hit
Yeah.
it.
Oh, my spellcasters be out there with a little telescope looking out their enemies.
That'd be a pretty fun villain. Just a guy sitting on top of a tower. Just
Yeah, just a little spell sniper. Fireball at 3 miles.
yep. Wizards, if you're watching, you're welcome.
Yep, that would be amazing.
Getting back to some of the more Jordan Con business here. We have a module writing contest.
Yes.
What is it? You want to go through and brainstorm a prompt here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, what is it? We want an adventure that is a single module.
Mm.
meaning, we can pick it up and set it anywhere that we want. We want to basically have a little bit of room at the end so that we can attach it to somewhere, so it can't have one particular ending.
Mm.
Has to be playable about 2 to 4 hours con schedule,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 to 6 players with pretty much who are going to be coming into this cold. So what is it? You can't necessarily like expect,
They're not going to know the whole history of the world.
right? You can't leave the big reveal to be that the Church of Lathander is actually.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
lastly, we have a theme of piety and or zealotry as the primary inciting action.
Interesting.
Yes.
Hmm. So I know usually when I am coming up with an adventure module, I try and come up with like 3 to 4 different hooks or ways that people can get the quest so that it's easier to insert. Because DM may want to put it in the middle of their players traveling or as a random quest that they get in a city, so it makes it a little easier to do that. So I always try and come up with a couple different ways for something to be an entry point. Gosh, what a broad topic that could be. Oh, this okay. My brain is in Eberron, so that's all the piety and religion stuff that I'm thinking of right now, which might be a little too specific for a general one. So, I mean, there's always just the classic and evil cultist kidnapping people from a city. That's pretty
That's good.
classic.
Yeah. What is it? You're setting this in Ebron, so just to show off the setting a bit, do you want to add one of the more unique elements, like let's say this is on a magic train.
Oh yeah, train heist sort of
What is
thing.
it? Maybe kind of a setup to where like the players are on this train basically to get from point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody got kidnapped.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
your cultist.
yeah. Or the train's carrying something that's valuable to the cult sect, and they're gonna try and use this person to get the item, and they've
Sure,
got to be
sure.
stopped before the train gets to the city. So there's a tight time limit.
Yep. There's our there's our 2 to 4 hours. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
What
yeah.
is
And
it?
confined fighting is super challenging. So trying to have any kind of encounter or fight on that is going to be challenging for the players because you're not going to have a whole lot of space to run around and do your stuff.
Well, unless they try to go up on the top, and that's
That's a bold strategy.
yep. What is it? But this is a great idea for like pacing the adventure, because essentially you could add or basically
Add or
what is it?
subtract cars.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as your time allows.
Yeah.
Um, but we want at least one social encounter, puzzle, or mystery on this, and sequential cars basically allow for a pretty easy place to insert a puzzle. But what were you thinking for something that was unique?
Oh, I always love social encounters. I am a role play heavy DM and player, so I always tend to default to social encounters. And, it's always fun in a train car mystery, I think, to have the players be the primary suspect. So, perhaps they get arrested at first for this kidnapping or murder or problem that's happening, and they have to convince the guard or the conductor, whoever has arrested them, that they are innocent and be released, or they have to figure a way out of their cells in another way if the social encounter fails.
Yes. What is it? So we have the Grand Detective Hercules
Yes,
Periot.
Periot is here.
What is it? With his grand mustache.
We have to have that, has to be a character in it. Yep, they've got to have a fabulous mustache detective.
Yes. What is it? That'll work. We can even having basically that NPC to feed them clues if they get stuck is a good way to keep the adventure moving.
Yes, yeah, because that is a huge problem sometimes. But what's nice with the train is that there is a linear path that they follow. Like the train cars go in a specific order. So unlike, wandering a city or even a dungeon, it's not, oh no, they got to room H before they got to room B and they missed the vital clue. So that's kind of nice for a train, as it really sets it up to be a bit more sequential and have a little more control over the order. Though there's no telling that some player will, leap out a car window and go fly up to the, engine room, because that will definitely happen. Because,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
Especially depending like on the level, like you may have to worry more than just like magical shenanigans. You could have somebody like go out there with like a blanket, staff, and like a string, and be like, "I'm gonna try to kite this."
oh yeah, oh absolutely, absolutely. Because if you wanted to make it extra challenging, you could even have the train itself be a magic suppression zone, so that spells don't work within the train. If you wanted to make it extra challenging for players, their weapons are confiscated. There are all sorts of ways to make it to add a little challenge if you're playing with a higher level group,
Hmm.
because that's something that can be a problem sometimes if you're playing with too high a level group, is they can have a spell that just immediately fixes a problem. But a magic suppression on a train in Eberron wouldn't be a huge, like, out of character thing, since the trains are run by lightning and air spirits. I
Hmm.
think the trains are lightning, um, but so it could be a necessary thing where they're like, no, 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 we don't need any rogue spellcasters on our train, please. Let's not kaboom anything. Thank you very much. We would like to not do that.
I would think that they would ask for like pouches of spell components before you got it.
Yeah, just be like, nope, all spell components and weapons, no.
Is
Yeah.
that a focus? Is that a focus? I'll give
Yeah,
it to you
that's
after the trip, bud.
yeah, yeah. Nope, nope, no Gandalfing with a stick in here, sir. No. I will deprive an old man of his walking stick, Gandalf, sir.
Terrible.
But yeah, so that would be an option you could add in to, if you wanted to make it an extra challenge for players, or if you have a high level group that may like just blast through this otherwise, add them an extra thing so they have to look at things in a way they're not used to.
Sure, sure. What is a really good and interesting combat encounter that may be like, if not the final one, like something that you could really take advantage of the setting and the area well?
So one of the things that I really like in Eberron is actually the dream world, and the kind of nightmare spirits that occasionally are trying to come through. The whole basis for the Kalishtar race of Eberron. So they're called the Quorai, and there are several different types, and they can take over people, or they can just show up as like these horrifying little like scorpion esque looking creatures. And they're basically trying to get into the world so that they can take over and do evil things, as evil creatures are wont to do.
Hmm.
But they have some interesting and cool abilities, and it could also put the players at another disadvantage of, oh no, people can be possessed. So what if the person responsible isn't really part of the cult? They just have been possessed. Oh no. Yeah.
Yeah, that could really lead into the social encounter too. Because,
Mm.
if the crazy cult leader is, 1 minute like trying to throw a lightning bolt at you, and then the next minute he's like,
Yeah, where am
guys, what's
I?
happening?
Yeah, what do your players do? How do they handle those sorts of situations?
Yes. Is it, if they're murder hobo-y,
Yeah, there's, but
I'd throw him off the train.
yeah, in that case, social encounters don't work very well anyways. But, then you can always throw a repercussion for that. It's okay, well, now you're arrested and going to jail for murder. Roll a new character, please. One with maybe slightly less murderous intent.
Never.
Oh, but yeah, I really like the core eye and the whole like dreaming dark and the twisty nightmare world of Eberron, which my poor players have to deal with all the time, and they hate it.
Well, and that's actually a good way to introduce a variety of terrain, because, like, after you've gone through a couple cards, that you'll develop a little bit of a strategy. You'll deal with that. So this might be a good variation as far as introducing another terrain basically for your players to take advantage of, and
Mm,
especially because it's the Nightmare Realm, you can get weird with that.
I know, which is so much fun. And even if you want to just mess with them even more, you can just use the hallucinatory terrain spell, and they're still on a train, but they think they're somewhere else. So, make them not know where they are, what's going on, keep them on their toes.
Yeah. No, I like these. I like these ideas. Very nice.
One of my players is in the next room just listening to this, probably shaking her head profusely.
Hey,
Oh.
what is it? How can I phrase this? It's a good thing that most of my players can't hear most of my planning sessions. That's
Oh, that's the hardest part. I plan stuff and I want to tell people, but I can't because they're all my players. But it's worth it. It's worth it for the moments where I get, oh, no. So, I'll take it. But yeah, the core eye are probably some of my favorite things from Eberron. I mean, or there's always just bringing in the Warforged, which are an absolute classic of Eberron. And, bringing in a mecha person is always kind of cool.
they really fit an aesthetic for a train too. I'll say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they're the more definitely more well known of the Eberron world or the Warforged for sure.
Sure. Sure.
So, variety.
Oh, of course. Although I will say that Eberron has no shortage of unique creatures from it. But again, those are the most well known. I won't dispute that.
Now I'm just imagining a detective who is a Warforged with a magnetic mustache that he puts on and off based on how much he's thinking. If
Oh
he
no!
really needs to think, he puts on the giant mustache.
See, no, that's his assistant, Doctor Watkins.
Yes, yes, that's the mustache. Yes, I love it.
Yes.
Perfect.
What is it? I imagine that he has like a series of these depending on the situation.
Yep, an appropriate mustache for every murder to solve.
Yes. Uh, this has to be a thing.
It does. It has to be a thing. Well, I recently in my group we had a goblin who was at a fancy party and he had a stick-on mustache that he would wear because he wanted to be fancy, and he kept losing it. And so he would just find new mustaches. So I have stick-on mustaches. Brain apparently. I love it. Warforged in his thinking mustaches.
I like it.
Oh.
Terrible.
It's wonderful. It'd be great. And see, like most players I know would love that. They would eat it up if a Warforged showed up with a detachable, like magnetic mustache. That would be like they would want to interact with that character.
I'm not saying that it isn't wonderful. I'm just saying it's also terrible.
It is. It's great and terrible, which most wonderful D&D plans are.
Yes.
This is a horrible idea. Let's do it.
Precisely.
It's not a D&D game if someone doesn't say that at some point.
No, you're absolutely right about that.
Oh, all right.
What was it in my home game? I'm doing a weird western, and there was this well that like every time like they never fully explored it, and every time they go down like this dry well, they always run into like something worse, and it gets like worse the further in they go. So like at one point, one of the players was just like, why are we even doing this? And there was just a lull because nobody could remember. It's like, crap, did we just climb into a random well?
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, I really don't know why you're here.
Yep, definitely. That's happened all the time. My players have accused random people of murder that absolutely was not the case. Nobody told them that, but they heard it from a reliable source. And I'm like, it was you. You're the source. So, yep.
Good
Oh,
times, good times.
oh, players. Yeah, that's the thing you have to remember whenever you're writing a D&D module is that you are never going to be able to outthink a player.
Well, I mean, you're outnumbered in that regard.
Oh yeah, so, for a module, you don't have to come up with every possible solution ever because you're not going to. You're never going to win that fight.
Well, it's always best to like if you can get at a point where you're at a cliffhanger. And if your players are like mine, they're like talking about like, what's going on and
Uh-huh.
thinking about what they're going to do next and trying to put the pieces together. And, then you just kind of sit back and like watch them go. And it's like, oh, yeah,
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to write it down.
yeah, that's a little better than what I got. Yeah.
Yeah, that's sometimes with like with puzzles. Sometimes it's just like, okay, you guys just do stuff and eventually it'll be good enough. I don't know how you're going to solve this. Just do something. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay, you solved it. Yay.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan of how should I phrase this? The puzzles that were testing the players per se.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
like here's a cipher. You know,
Yeah.
what's the keyword? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
those are challenging.
although what was it? Hall of Fame for the most challenging simple puzzle that I had. They were trying to break into a vampire's castle, and she was basically the overlord of the area,
Okay.
and there was a animate stone head that basically said, uh, "Who do you serve?" And every time they answered it wrong, they would get like blasted with acidic spray, and they almost killed themselves twice before one of them just said the vampire's name, and then the gates opened up.
Yeah, I've seen a joke meme of DMs looking for puzzles. Puzzles for toddlers. Ah.
Well, I mean, they were smart people, and like the things that they said within the context of like how they were thinking, because they were like talking amongst themselves and
Exactly.
trying to
Yeah.
think it out. It's like, well, obviously, it's too easy that like she would just put like her
Can't
own
be
name.
the
Yeah,
answer. No. Yeah.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
like
The new book, Tasha's Cauldron, has some nice puzzles in it. I haven't put any in yet, but it actually has a few interesting puzzles that I might try.
yeah, they're I'm blanking on the name. There's a really good second edition book of puzzles that was all like visual and artistic based puzzles that
Mm-hmm.
basically I have used a lot over the years. At this point, I've gone through the book several times, and most of my players know them. But
Oh yeah.
um, they were really good because it wasn't just like cipher these runes to make a word. It was basically you'd have like images of what is it portcullises and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
like it would be like, well, how would you open this door with like a series of like levers and pulleys and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, and I like it when a puzzle or even a trap makes sense to the location. Because
Yes.
sometimes it's like, oh, I'm in a random house, magma pit. What?
Where do
Yeah,
you keep your magma?
yeah. How do you keep your magma in your wooden house? What? So yeah, if you have a puzzle or trap, I like for them to make sense. I had a house once that was haunted and trying to eat people. And so it had an ice cream chute trap. So people would slide down and then it would drop ice cream on top of them. Well, my player saw red something coming towards her and immediately cast to freeze it, and then suddenly turned the scoop of strawberry ice cream into a boulder that caused much more damage than it would have had it remained ice cream. But you know, that was fun. So, but yeah,
Nice.
I like the puzzles and the traps to kind of fit where you are. Because yeah, like going back to our train, I don't know that a train would necessarily have a whole lot of puzzles or traps since it's meant for kind of commuter travel. how much time would a cultist sort of have to actually set up a grand and elaborate, sit in these four seats to unlock the door kind of a trap. So, I think that helps to keep an adventure on track. Haha, but tish. Is what would fit in the location that you're in. Because if you're in a house, maybe don't put a magma trap.
I'm a big fan of what I would term as interactive traps, in that it isn't a physical mechanism per se, but basically you're you're trying to resolve a problem with given stimulus that, or given statistics that basically the players know ahead of time, in order to come to a solution. Like the trap might be, you have six archers at the end of the cart. They have taken all the other seats out so that they have cover. You don't.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they are going to pincushion you if you just rush through there. You know,
Yeah, those are
what do you
fun.
do?
Yeah, those are fun, and giving players a chance to kind of think through their actions or not think. That's a choice too. You can just barrel on through and not stop to think about what you're doing. And if you're the barbarian, that might be the best option,
Yeah.
honestly. Who know?
Or if you're the guy behind the barbarian.
Yeah, if you're the wizard just tucked low behind the barbarian, that works great for you. If you don't have a barbarian, you might hang back and think a little bit before you make a decision.
Well, and again, that's where I think like a good puzzle is, because I think a lot of people get like too stuck in the video game mentality of like, I have to find the key to the
Yeah.
door. There are lots of solutions to that. You got a pickaxe. You can dig out the door from the wall and take it off its hinges. Do you have thieves' tools? Can you knock the door off the hinges? It's a wooden
Is
door.
the door locked?
Yeah,
That's my
honestly.
favorite. That's my favorite. They're like, oh, I'm trying all these things and nothing's working. The door is not locked.
Yep.
Please put the thieves' tools away. You don't know how to use them.
Dang it, I spent 5 gold on this.
I bought these from a very reputable man down a dark alleyway. Dang it!
but but no, like I said, the book that I was referring to had a lot of visual puzzles, which I it didn't have a hard solution for each one like in there. It's basically just like, here's the problem. What do you do for the solution? And I think that the best sort of puzzles are the ones that you can, just say, well, I got a shovel. The door is locked. I'm going to dig under the door because it's a dirt floor.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's a
I think
that's a
that
perfectly valid solution.
Yeah, and I think that works especially well in like tabletop games where they are interactive. There is definitely no one set solution that only works. There's going to be other options that you won't have thought of,
Yeah.
and you'll run the same puzzle for 14 groups and they'll come up with different ways. You'll still get surprised sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean it prevents the like, classic problem of how do the players get through this unopenable door because nobody can roll above a 3.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, cat.
Oh,
She's being very
so we're
cute.
joined with a special guest star.
Special guest star Harley. Hello. Hello. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, baby. I can't play with you right now. Let go. Let go. I have made a tactical error by picking you up. Let go. Release me.
What part of star did you not understand?
Yeah, I did that to myself. I have no one to blame for that decision but me. That was one of those I did not think through my solution before I chose it.
It's more fun if you don't sometimes.
It is. It honestly it is. It is.
But at any rate, we're getting on in time here. I wanted to keep this not going too long here. Last 2 questions. Where can we find some of your products, both your books and your RPG material?
Yeah, so the easiest place is to just go to my website, which is judyblackcloud.com. And that has links to all of my various books, all of my various stoof, including my D&D stuff and my fiction stuff. And then on social media, I'm just at Judy Blackcloud pretty much everywhere. and I'm on there far too frequently.
All right.
A lot of
If somebody wanted to, what is it? Leave you a message. What's the best way to do that? Which social media do you haunt the most?
probably on Twitter the most, which I shouldn't be, but they've got good memes. Twitter has good memes. And the D&D group there is pretty fun. I find all sorts of stuff there, just going through the D&D tag and seeing what people are chatting about or sharing or that kind of thing. So
Oh, sure,
I
sure,
always
sure.
enjoy that. So probably Twitter.
No, I get you. Well, and with that, I'll bid you adieu, and we'll end here. Thank you for coming, and I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, and we'll have to bring the Mustache Warforge into the world someday. Yes.